Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am your host, Ghadi Francis, and I am back for the latest updates and stories from the world's most volatile region. This week has been a cruel week for West Asia. Over 100 people died in a terrorist attack in Homs, Syria. The Turkish capital, Ankara, was targeted by the PKK. And the fragile Iran-Saudi truce met its first challenge. I will be bringing you stories about these and much more. But first, let's take a look at what made the top headlines in the region. Iranian human rights activist Narges Mohammadi has been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 2023 for her fight against the oppression of women. She has been arrested 13 times, convicted 5 times, and sentenced to a total of 31 years in prison and 154 lashes, said the Nobel Prize website. Iraq will ban cash withdrawals and transactions in US dollars as of January 1st, 2024. This is the latest push to curb the misuse of its hard currency reserves in financial crimes and the evasion of US sanctions on Iran. A deadly terrorist attack hit Syria. Over 100 people have been reportedly killed. It was a ceremony, a graduation ceremony, but scenes of horror, pain, and cries took over this ceremony at a military institute in Homs. Our next report brings you all the details.
A day full of happiness turned into one of sorrow and grief in a matter of seconds. At least 112 people have been killed in the Syrian city of Homs. A drone strike hit a military institute on Thursday. It happened during a graduation ceremony. Parents, teachers, spouses, and siblings all were together to celebrate the big day. Instead, many of them fell to the deadly terror attack. Graphic videos of the aftermath show people running and wailing, while corpses pile up on the ground. The death toll is expected to rise further as the wounded confront a life and death moment. The Syrian government says the drone strike was carried out by internationally backed rebel groups operating outside of Homs. In retaliation, they have intensified attacks on the northwestern Idlib province, one of the few Syrian regions still under rebel control. Over 20 villages were attacked. More than 8 people were killed in Syrian strikes. This was the biggest terror attack in Syria in recent years. Regional observers call it a big blow to the Assad regime, signaling an intelligence failure, a major security breach. It happened just a short while after the defense minister had left the ceremony. Some reports say it targeted the VIP section of the event. The Syrian government has vowed to find and bring the enemies to justice wherever they are on Syrian land. The armed forces have called it an unprecedented criminal act and vowed to respond with full force. The United Nations has also expressed grief. Its Syria envoy has deplored the horrific attack, further warning that the country's status quo can quickly worsen. These were the final moments of graduation where smiles were replaced by shrieks of horror. The young adults were supposed to graduate with tags on their chest. Instead, they became bodies wrapped in the Syrian flag.
Turkey is angry. Its capital, Ankara, has been hit. PKK carried out an explosion outside the Interior Ministry's office. Now, the officials have rounded up about 1,000 people. Targets in Iraq and Syria were attacked as Ankara vowed to make the perpetrators face the music. Listen in.
A terrorist attack in the heart of the Turkish capital. Ankara on alert. Targets identified and counter-terror operations began. This week, 2 PKK attackers carried out a blast near the Turkish parliament. One blew himself up and the other was shot dead by the police. A senior Turkish official said that the attackers had hijacked a vehicle and killed its driver in a city some 161 miles southeast of Ankara. They then used the same for carrying out the attack. 2 police officers were wounded in the incident. Soon after the blast, Erdogan stepped into the parliament, vowed to take down the terrorists that threatened Turkiye.
The scoundrels who target the peace and security of the citizens could not achieve their goals. They will never reach it. We have checked all the footage and everything has been proven for us.
Soon after, Turkish officials announced that Kurdish facilities in Iraq and Syria are valid security targets, and that it will find the conspirators.
On the occasion, I would like to say the following. All infrastructures, superstructures and energy facilities of the PKK and the YPG in Iraq and Syria, especially in Iraq and Syria, are the legitimate targets of our security forces, armed forces and intelligence elements.
What followed were targeted strikes in Kurdish areas. From the Syrian mountains to the Iraqi border, no place was out of bounds. Even at home, over 1,000 people with links to the Kurdistan Workers' Party or the PKK were rounded up. On Thursday, US-led forces reportedly shot down a drone over northern Syria. This came after the allied Syrian Kurdish forces claimed that Turkish strikes had killed at least 8 people. Ankara, meanwhile, stepped away from the claims. The Turkish Defense Ministry said the drone shot down did not belong to them. In recent years, Turkiye has upped its cross-border incursions into northern Syria. Its target is the YPG militia. Ankara sees it as an affiliate of the PKK, now based in northern Iraq. The YPG is also an ally of a US-led coalition fighting the Islamic State. Western support for the group has often been a sticking issue between the countries and Turkey. The Iraqi defense minister visiting Turkey also expressed his country's reservations about the cross-border strikes. Thabet al-Abbasi relayed the government's intent to fight terror, but not at the cost of sovereignty. The Sunday strike was the first in the Turkish capital since 2016. Back then, a spate of deadly attacks had gripped the country. The PKK and the Islamic State together wreaked havoc that had become difficult to contain. But things got better soon as Ankara stepped up its battle against terror. At the center of its attack, like many others, is the PKK, a group branded as a terror outfit by Ankara. The PKK has Marxist-Leninist roots. It was formed in the late 1970s. Soon after its birth, the group launched an armed struggle against the Turkish government in 1984. They called for an independent Kurdish state within Turkey. Till the 1990s, the group had rolled back its demands for a separate state. They instead called for more autonomy for the Kurds. To date, over 40,000 people have died in the conflict.
Times change, but some things keep on happening. Now, a year after Mahsa Amini's death in Iran, a teenage girl is in coma after an incident took place in a Tehran metro station which may involve the country's morality police. Take a look.
This is Armita Garawand. The 16-year-old looks like a regular teenager. But living in Iran, there's nothing normal about being a young woman in the country, especially when your short black hair are not covered by a headscarf. Just days ago, Armita and two of her friends took a subway coach in Tehran. Within moments, a regular Sunday morning turned into a battle of life and death. Minutes after boarding the train, the innocent 16-year-old's body was dragged out. Her unconscious body was lying on the subway platform. This is Armita's condition right now. The teenager slipped into a coma, and for days she has been battling for her life. A fight that continues at an intensive care unit of a military hospital in Tehran. There is no clarity on what happened to Armita. Authorities are citing sudden drop in blood pressure as the reason for Armita's condition. Her family also seems to follow the same story, at least in the state media issued accounts.
I think they have said she had a drop in her blood pressure. Either there was a drop in her blood pressure or she fell hitting her head on the edge of the platform. Then her friend, one in the front and the other behind her, took her out of the train and called the emergency.
We have checked all the footage and everything has been proven for us.
Rights activists, meanwhile, claim that Garawand may have been pushed or attacked for not wearing the hijab. They are demanding an independent investigation by the UN's fact-finding mission on Iran. The activists claim that the Iranian regime used pressure on victims' families, and the coerced confessions were later aired by state TV. Iran's history of torturing and repressing women is no secret. And the name that comes into mind the minute such incidents occur is one: Iran's morality police. Many people are asking one question: are Armita's culprits the same people who killed 22-year-old Mahsa Amini too? The incident is an eerie, heartbreaking reminder of what happened on 16 September 2022. Iran's hijab monitors, more commonly known as the morality police, had detained and mercilessly beat Mahsa Amini. She died in police custody. The reason for her torture? Mahsa showed too much hair beneath the compulsory veil that women in Iran are forced to wear. In Iran, the hijab has long been a political symbol as well, especially after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. In the present day, Iran and the Taliban are the only countries where hijab remains mandatory for women. News of her death triggered widespread demonstrations in Iran. For months, the Islamic regime saw the largest ever anti-government protests in more than 40 years. But Iran did what it does best. At least 500 people were killed, over 15,000 arrested, and dissenting voices demanding justice and freedom for women were crushed. One year on, the morality police have struck again, barely 3 months after the group resumed public patrols to enforce rigid headscarf rules for women. Another young girl has been brutalized. Another woman exercising her choice has been sent to the hospital, and she is battling for her life. All because Iran's authoritarian regime has the supreme power to decide how women live.
Geopolitics can be a spoil sport. Quite literally, actually. This week, Iran was supposed to host its second match against Saudi Arabia. But this was cancelled last minute as Al-Ittihad players refused to leave their locker rooms. Why? What happened? Listen in.
On the 10th of March 2023, Saudi Arabia and Iran chose to put aside their differences and restore diplomatic relations. The two sworn enemies shook hands, claiming the betterment of the region. The historic Chinese brokered talks had a domino effect on the polity of West Asia. A flurry of truces followed. Cut to 8 months later, the differences that Riyadh and Tehran mutually put aside took center stage again, this time in a way of a football match. A Saudi soccer team made a last-minute withdrawal from an Asian Champions League match in Iran. It was due to the presence of the bust of a now dead Iranian general. Al-Ittihad refused to leave their locker rooms on Monday, effectively calling off the match with Iranian team Sepahan. The Saudi manager said that the players were opposed to the statue of an assassinated military commander, Qasim Suleiman, placed at the entrance to the pitch. They demanded that the statue be removed. The incident led to a major controversy in both nations. The two teams had recently started playing against each other. It was made possible by the rapprochement. Some reports indicate the Saudi team practiced on the same pitch just 2 days ago. Then too the statue was present, but no one raised objections. The statue, as per Iranian media and its players, has been present there for 3 years. General Soleimani ran the overseas arm of Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. He was a blunt critic of the Saudi government and the ruling Al Saud family. Soleimani was killed in a US drone strike in Baghdad in 2020. The general is revered as a martyr by Iranian hardliners. Saudi perceives him as a terrorist for blackmailing militias in the Arab world. The league later stated that the match was cancelled due to unforeseen reasons, while Tehran said the match will soon be rescheduled. The incident can pose an early challenge to the infant truce. It proved many reservations right, that despite the rapprochement, both countries' profound differences remain. While both administrations have not yet intervened in the controversy, football fans in the country and region have raised their voices. For them, the matches came after a long break. The two countries did not play a single match against one another in over 7 years. The match was supposed to further normalcy in ties. Chants of Iran and Saudi fans were supposed to take over the stadium. But in the end, all that remained was proof of a long-standing belief that politics and sports don't go well together.
And now to Lebanon, the country I am currently standing in. Now, year after year, ever since 2019, Lebanon has been reeling from an economic crisis. But now there is a new fear for Lebanese parents. They are fearing for the future of their children, struggling to make ends meet and having to choose between letting the water and the gas running in the house. Many, more and more, are putting their children in the public schools, which have been proven not really reliable. Take a look.
With tears in her eyes, a helpless Harari looks blank as her children spend another day waiting to rejoin school. A grueling economic crisis, constant closures have pulled thousands of Lebanese children out of schools. Struggling to make ends meet, some families have been forced to send their kids out to work. A UNICEF report states that at least 15% of households have pulled their children out of school. This is a 5% jump in just a year. 1 in 10 families have been forced to send their kids to work. Lebanon's public institutions have been crumbling since the economy collapsed in late 2019. It has pushed most of the population into poverty and dealt a heavy blow to state schools. Public sector workers, including teachers, have repeatedly gone on strike. They are now demanding a raise. The value of their salaries crashed after the Lebanese pound lost more than 98% of its worth against the dollar. Public sector teachers in Lebanon earn the equivalent of $150 to $300 per month.
Every human being dreams of having a better future, of living in a better country, better than what we are going through right now. Everything is expensive. Food is expensive, water is expensive, and all the prices are increasing. Diesel, gasoline, even bread. Prices for food and water are increasing. Nothing is cheap these days. We have nothing.
The UN agencies say that for the last 4 years, children in Lebanon have experienced devastating disruption of their education. And most of these disruptions have been attributed to the economic crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic and the deadly 2020 blast that rocked Beirut's port as well.
There's an education and learning crisis in Lebanon, particularly affecting the most marginalised children, those that rely on the public sector to provide safe learning opportunities. We know from UNICEF's rapid assessment in June 2023 that 15% of households have stopped the education of their children, and that's catastrophic for those children and also for families and the future of the country. We also know that increasing numbers of children, 1 in 10, have stopped education and are working.
According to a recent Human Rights Watch report, Lebanon's education ministry has slashed the number of teaching days from 180 in 2016 to about 60 in the past 2 years. The reason cited is financial constraints. The non-profit group says that year after year, the ministry has failed to secure the funds needed for schools to remain open.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you the latest updates, news and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay safe. I am your host, Ghadi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. And for more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.